At Dubai's Museum of the Future, global business leaders, entrepreneurs and philanthropists have come together to launch a $500 million fund led not by governments or aid agencies, but by investors. Resilio Fund, created by Dubai-based Legatum, brings a business-driven approach to how the world responds to crisis, putting resources and decisions in the hands of affected communities. Officials in Dubai say this move by Legatum is part of a growing trend, personified in many ways by His Excellency Badr Jafar, who was appointed the UAE's Special Envoy for Business and Philanthropy in September last year.
Across the world, 300 million people need urgent humanitarian assistance, the highest in modern history. The question is no longer only how much we give, but how we give, to whom and to what end. From my vantage point as a student of philanthropy for 20 years or so, I see a clear pattern. Systems work best when they trust local capability, channel flexible finance, and measure outcomes that communities actually value. In other words, we must move from delivering aid to enabling agency.
His Excellency Badr Jafar says blending private capital with public and philanthropic finance can unlock new models for rebuilding communities after disaster.
For 2 decades, our country has been quietly reshaping the practice of giving here. What distinguishes our approach is a culture of execution, a policy environment that welcomes collaboration across sectors, and partnerships that prioritize impact over promotion. The UAE is rapidly becoming a global nexus for philanthropic investment and collaboration, a place where entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and humanitarian operators are building unusual alliances that deliver real-world outcomes. Here we strive to turn ambition into architecture, matching generosity with governance and scale with stewardship.
This launch also reflects a wider shift in philanthropic giving, away from traditional aid and towards locally led partnerships organised by businesses and investors across the Gulf. And it is much needed. Aid budgets around the world are being slashed. They've been down 7% between 2023 and 2024. And looking ahead to next year, the United States is cutting its aid budget by a third. Alan McCormick is a founding partner of Legatum. He says this underscores the urgent need for innovative and scalable approaches to crisis response.
Earlier this year, you saw the closure of USAID, which is a huge funder of different humanitarian initiatives around the world. The withdrawal of that capital is still being felt. You've got lots of job layoffs, you've got lots of programs being shut down. And the question is, where are the resources going to come from to help many of these communities that really do need these resources? And I think scarcity also breeds innovation. So you start thinking about new approaches. And I think in that space right now, you're seeing these new ideas emerging. And I think, obviously, when there's a paucity of capital, people coming together and collaborating, looking to innovate, that's where you see these models of collaboration, I think, rising to the fore. So I do think it's the next trend in philanthropy. I think when we started 20 years ago, 15 years ago doing this, very, very few people had been thinking in these terms. But now we're seeing many, many more doing that. And with that, actually making demands on monitoring, evaluation, making sure there's transparency when people are giving their money. They understand the organizations that they're giving towards, and that those organizations themselves are being held to account.
Legatum has already channeled over $1 billion into collaborative funds tackling global challenges. Resilio will focus on countries like Ethiopia, Lebanon, and the Philippines, putting decision-making directly in the hands of local responders. Anchor commitments come from foundations including UBS Optimus. Together, they aim to demonstrate that larger-scale giving can be efficient, accountable, and community-driven.
Well, currently, about $43 billion a year is given in humanitarian assistance, and about 1% of that goes towards community-based organizations. Very often what's happening is resources are directed from above by governments or by INGOs, and the needs and the considerations of those organizations are really not taken into account. So what Resilio is trying to do is identify people and organizations that are proximate to those problems and helping them get the resources they need so that they can solve their own problems. They often don't need direction, they just need some help. And so rather than coming in from above, they're coming in from below and helping those organizations.
The UAE is fast becoming a global meeting point for philanthropic investors and collaboration, a place where entrepreneurs, investors, and humanitarians come together to tackle complex challenges. And this event follows a string of national initiatives. Just a few days ago, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE and ruler of Dubai, announced a 100 million dirham fund to grow the UAE's non-profit sector and create 10,000 jobs. Analysts say this convergence of public ambition and private innovation could make the UAE a global hub for impact capital and crisis response. From boardroom to the front lines, Resilio Fund marks a new era in Dubai's business-led giving. But could it also signal a new phase in the way in which the world deals with a crisis?